super excited to be here today and sharing with you some real experts in hope and the science of hope and mental health. So welcome. And Martin, good to see you.
Great to see you too. And I think today, this year, this decade is truly a time where we have to focus on hope, and we have to take energy and express what hope looks like and kind of draw this conversation out, because if we've ever needed it, we need it right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we know hopelessness is predictive of violence, of weapon carrying, unspooled property, of self-harm, addiction, kind of all of these negative things that happen to us in life. And yet we're never taught really what is hopelessness and how do we kind of proactively manage it to get to hope, which I think is such a powerful tool for people to be able to use, so that kind of no matter what they're dealing with in life, they don't turn to things like violence or addiction or self-harm, but they learn how to manage the despair and then also that helplessness, which are really the two kind of components of hopelessness.
And we have some great speakers today. I'm really excited to hear from all of them, but tell us what's happening after this live streaming event.
Yeah, well, I'm super excited. So we're doing a live event in Reno, Nevada. Our Mayor Hillary Sheevey proclaimed Reno the first hopeful city in the world. And so we're unveiling murals. We have some senators' offices, the governor's office, different mayors have issued proclamations. We have the Washoe County School District, UNR, the Chamber of Commerce. We have ambassadors around the city going out and handing out hope cards. We'll be doing photos. So it's really exciting. It's a great way to activate community. And the idea is to then provide a roadmap so that any city in the world can do it. So we have what's called Hopeful Cities Playbook. And so cities can, work to activate hope in their own city.
That's awesome. Is that playbook available now?
It's not quite now, like tomorrow.
So soon.
Yeah, exactly. It's coming.
Well, that's amazing. So
thank you.
A day full of hope, truly.
Yeah. And not just talking about it, but really teaching how do you activate it. So we use SHINE as the acronym, which is stress skills, happiness habits, inspired actions, nourishing networks, and then eliminating challenges, which are generally around kind of our thinking patterns, rumination, worry, internalizing failure, trying to control things outside of our control. So we've created kind of this framework. And so we use Shine Hope now a lot. And that's really the tools we use to activate hope.
So all very practical tools, steps. This isn't just a campaign to use the word hope. It's actual steps that cities and folks can take and use right now.
Absolutely. So we teach you how do you measure your hope and how do you work to activate skills in your life that can improve your hope. And we know hope is predictive of so many life outcomes.
Great. Well, it's about that time. I think we have our first speaker coming up. So looking forward to it, Kathryn. And again, thank you for putting all of this together. It's an incredible gift that you're giving to everyone.
Oh, me too. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me here. I'm excited to hear from Dr. Belfer first, who has just been my mentor and advisor and a champion for hope on a very, very long journey. So I'm really grateful that he made it. He could make it. It's great. And I'm looking forward to the rest. Yeah, we have incredible speakers. So thanks.
Great.
Shall I start? Well, thank you for inviting me to be part of the International Day of Hope. I think a decade ago, we never could have imagined that we would, in fact, have an International Day of Hope with so many participants talking not just in vague terms about hope, but highlighting all the things that we've learned about how to operationalize hope, how to make it very real and useful, not only as a concept, but as something that we can use as a tool to help people who are feeling distress. As a child psychiatrist, I'm acutely aware of the global epidemic of suicide, in other words. And before, when I was working in a hospital setting more than in the public setting, I was aware that patients who had hope, in other words, had much better outcomes, medical outcomes, that they seemed to survive in a way that others could not. So losing hope is a terrible thing to have happen to anyone in any setting, in other words. And I think this is what's contributing in part now to the epidemic of suicide, not only in youth, but in adults as well. Certainly circumstances around the world challenge us to have hope. There's no doubt about it. In other words, this is a distressing time no matter where you are. There isn't a continent that's safe these days from experiencing stress and all those things that make people lose hope. But we're fortunate in that the science, in other words, in recent times, has taught us, in other words, that we can teach hope, that hope is a teachable entity. In other words, that it is something that people can grasp. We have a school curriculum that help younger people to learn about hope. We have very sophisticated now public education programs that focus on hope. So we're no longer talking about hope in vague terms. In other words, we used to think about hope as an amorphous concept, something that we couldn't really grasp, but we knew was good. In other words, now we know that hope is something that can be looked at in a more scientific way. The studies carried out by Kathryn and her colleagues around the world, in other words, have shown in well-controlled studies that hope can be used to help people who are facing distress. And this is very encouraging. It gives us hope that 10 years from now, that this International Day of Hope will be looked back upon as the start, in fact, operationalizing of a global network of individuals and groups dedicated to fostering hope. We hope that in this particular climate, where there is so much distress, conflict, displacement, suicide, that people will learn about all the things that we've been able to develop in terms of curriculum, in terms of manuals, in terms of videos, to use those in many ways and bring back to the wider audience the experience of teaching hope, operationalizing hope, of using hope to better mankind. So I'm hopeful that all the efforts of the people who are participating in this International Day of Hope will result in something much larger than we possibly could have envisioned a decade ago, and certainly more than I could have ever hoped would occur from the beginnings of this effort. Thank you very much.
So welcome to this first International Day for Hope, and Dr. Belfer for that amazing introduction. It's been such a journey getting to the point we are today, and I think it's just the start of another kind of long journey forward. It's hard to imagine that I started this work almost 18 years ago on a mission to rebrand mental health. And then what I came to was the power and science of hope. And you know, I have a previous suicide attempt myself. I lost my dad when I was 17 or 18 years old, a freshman in college, to suicide, and just really know the devastating effects of hopelessness. And so when I started thinking about true suicide prevention, it's not just for the world, but it's also for me personally. It's a very personal issue. And hopelessness across the literature is really the single consistent predictor of suicide, or a primary one. And it's a key symptom of depression and anxiety. And, as we're taught to manage our glucose for diabetes, I thought, why aren't we taught how to manage our hopelessness? Like, really, what is hopelessness and how can we kind of proactively manage it? And so that set out on a mission about almost 10 years ago to figure out, can we actually teach hope? And if so, how can we do that? And can we create something that can be used around the world? That it's adaptable for many cultures. So I'm really excited that we actually do. We've shown that you can teach hope and improve hope. We have a program called Hopeful Minds. It really is geared towards younger kids, so maybe 6 to 12, 7 to 12. It teaches really hopelessness is that despair, and we all feel despair, fear, anger, sadness, and then that helplessness. So really dealing with how do we take action when we feel that helplessness or when we're experiencing helplessness. And so that's what Hopeful Minds set out to do. And then it was about almost maybe two and a half years ago, our mayor of Reno came to me and said, why don't we do something to, like they do for kindness, they have a city of kindness, why don't we do something like that for the city, for Reno? And so I said, okay, but I want something that anyone around the world can use to kind of activate hope in their own cities. So we've developed a framework called Hopeful Cities, where we address government, education, marketing and awareness, and science and art. So we bring all of those components into how you activate hope within a city itself. Not just doing a marketing campaign talking about hope, but actually educating on the science of hope along the way and how to activate your community on these skills. So we have a Hopeful Cities website that you can go to and download free materials. We have a 5-day challenge that's starting today. And the goal is really to make hope understood. That, I mean, it's predictive of so many life outcomes, right? Recovery from disease, how long you live, how well you do in the workplace, your education, graduation rates, retention for workplace. So there are so many different aspects of hope that have been shown to have positive impact. So how can we work together to activate it more around in your community and in yourself and then around the world? And so that's really the goal of today. So I'm excited to have these incredible speakers sharing different things they're doing around hope as well, and mental health, and the importance of us all to kind of take action and to work together because we have super limited resources, and to provide programs and materials and support that actually activates hope in the communities. So I'm super grateful to be here today, and I'm excited to also learn more from my colleagues on what they've been up to. So thanks for joining.
So super excited to be here today. And I wanted to ask a question that seems a little off subject, but I'm going to tie it back at the end. Have you ever had a moment, maybe with your kids, an employee, a friend, where you say, come on, like, did you really just do that? Are you really doing this? That sense of complete disappointment. So I want you to hold on to that for a second. I want to talk a little bit about the work that we do at Youthera. I promise it's going to tie back into hope. We at Youthera have been doing peer support since 2009. And right now, we just broke into the 65 full-time peer support specialists, youth peer support specialists. During COVID, we started our virtual services actually a little bit before COVID. Someone was watching out for us when we got funding before COVID to start investing in creating some virtual experiences like on Twitch and areas like that. And we created a training that was studied by the University of Oxford and found to be super effective. For example, for the duration of the study, which was 3 months, significant amount of young people who were taking as needed anxiety meds were taking dramatically lower amounts of those meds throughout the study. So this is a 5-day training that we do, and it's all virtual. And part of this training is really asking young people to be immersed in, which is hard to do. All of us remember Zoom school and the Zoom fatigue that we all faced, but we built Uplift different. So it feels like a party that you're coming to. There's music and movement, and there's never a 15-minute period where we're not changing things up. But the whole point of the training is to teach young people how to support their friends, how to support other youth. And so much research has been done on other areas in the field of outcomes and predictive models around wealth inequality. And one of the things that was surprising to me is that when we're looking at affluent young people, one of the benefits of being affluent isn't just your financial resources, but it's the ability to have connections from your parents, from folks that your family are connected to. They open doors for you. So it's kind of a surprising side effect, or not so surprising side effect of being wealthy. And in the same lens, when we look at mental health, especially for young people, mental health, the stigma of mental health creates social isolation. And thinking about that during a lockdown, during a pandemic, that isolation only compounds. If you weren't connected before the pandemic, it might be a lot harder to connect after. So, see, I look at it like this. We shun things that seem simple. People are like that. We like complex recipes because we think if it's complex, there's a greater chance it's going to work out. And if you grind down what we do at Youthera, we have drop-in centers and we do all of this work. If you grind it down to its simplest form, I think it's about creating opportunities where we tell young people, or we give young people the opportunity to spot other peers and say, I know you. You're just like me. And in closing, this Uplift training has a second tier, a second part of the training where we take the most advanced youth and we train them even more. So these are the youth who care most about Uplift. And so I asked you to think about that moment of disappointment that you have, or you kind of facepalm. Well, during this second tier training that we had after Uplift, one of these young people who gave their spring break to come and get training, they turned their camera off, which is a safety protocol for us. We have to have cameras on to make sure that the hard subjects we're talking about, that people are okay, and if not, that we can help them. So in that training, when one of these top tier youth turned her camera off, there's that facepalm moment, right? And this is the text that she responded with. So determined. This young woman is here to build community, get skills, giving up her spring break, that even when the threat of violence is right outside the door, she was determined to stay the line and continue. And for me, that's a signal that we ought to be investing our energy and focus into giving these young people young people these skills that they need because they desperately want them. Thank you.
So I think it's my turn now. So first of all, thank you very much, for this opportunity to participate in this event. My name is Gabriel Vigero. I'm the current Secretary General of the World Federation for Mental Health, and I'm the president and founder of the World Dignity Project. And really, so hope is one of the things that been a driving force for myself, because I started my training in Nigeria, and really, so I'm really happy to be part of this event. So in World Dignity Project, we started by talking to many people all over the world, and young people, old people, professionals, and co. And one of the things that they came about and spoke to us about was the need to have hope. And that really, that if you have a mental illness, sometimes you are robbed of your dignity, you are robbed of everything you have, but the only thing that keeps you going is hope, and the fact that one day, you could be all right, And I really so when Kathryn told me about the project about hope, I thought it was really fits into the kind of thing we've been thinking. And the fact that there's the research now to also back our intuition is something that I really like. So really, so I'm delighted to be part of this day. I hope to be able to tell my children and my grandchildren that when this idea was launched publicly, I was there, So really, so I want to say thank you very much for that. So as I said, for mental health, it's about journey of hope. It's about, that, there'll be somebody for me, and I should have hope. So really, we must not rob people of hope. I think, we must find a way to make hope, much more affordable and available to everybody. So, I know I spoke to patients many times ago and citizens, and they said about hope. Is it really true that this will work, So really, so I looked at some papers, actually, even before Kathryn started showing me the evidence. And what evidence is telling us is that actually hope predicts mental health better than mental illness. Now, when I was in medical school, they tell us that, if you have a mental illness, it predicts another one, depression predicts depression. But actually, no, having hope and hopelessness is a better prediction. And that's very strong, So really, so if that is the case, if we're going to be talking about health promotion, then we have to think about how do we promote hope in individuals so that they don't feel hopeless? How do we strengthen resilience in people? So really, so I think we need a new approach, So really, so I'm happy that this issue is happening. And I know Kathryn is coming to London in our World Congress to talk about it. She's going to lead a workshop. So we see how we can move on with it, And also takes me to World Mental Health this year. World Mental Health this year it's about how to make mental health and well-being for all a global priority. It's about the hope, So I'm hoping, that we can do something together, something greater than we've been doing so far. And I'm just glad to be part of this August event. I'm grateful. Thank you very much.
First off, thank you so much for letting me come and speak about what's all of the wonderful stuff that Hope has done and how it's just so helpful for everyone. I'm Crystal Bryce. I am an assistant clinical professor at Arizona State University. And I have had the honor to work with Kathryn on implementing hopeful mindsets on the college campus. And so she reached out to me and she said, hey, you study hope. I have this hope project that we're working on. And it was everything I could ever have dreamed of. So it's really focusing on how do we help our students in college, especially those first year students, how do we help them have that hope and what does that look like for outcomes? So Kathryn kind of touched on this earlier, but we know that hope is so important for college retention. And at the time that she reached out, I had noticed, I had just published a paper that was focusing on this. And so I had wanted to do this in the college setting with college students, and she had everything that I could have wanted in a preset package. So it's been a wonderful year seeing this and how this works. For all of our students, we're seeing that those students who were in this hope Hopeful Minds class, that's what we called it, they are showing an increase in hope as compared to those who weren't in the Hopeful Mindset class, and they were showing a significant decrease in hope over this semester. And I think that the most telling thing is when I was in those classes with those students, and they were so engaged, and they would tell me that this is the best class and we love connecting with our peers and we love connecting with you. And I think that's what having a strong hope network is really all about. How do we make those connections, or how do we help our students make those connections? Because sometimes that can be really hard for them. So I just wanted to, with my couple minutes left, I just wanted to share a couple of my favorite quotes. So I asked them to evaluate, how did this go? What did you think? And I said, thinking about the entire semester, what was your favorite part of class and why? Someone said stress skills. I didn't know how to deal with problems when I get stressed, but these skills definitely help me manage my stress and make progress. So they were with me for only a semester, and these are the things that they're really taking home. My favorite part of the class was getting to know everyone in class, because everyone is so, so different. However, we all have similar struggles. I think that also just highlights that connection that they made with each other, even though they came from different backgrounds, and they all have, maybe, I remember them saying, I probably wouldn't have ever talked to you in real life, but I do in this class. Being able to build connections with my classmates, because in college, it is rare to be comfortable with a class that you're enrolled in. So it really shows that kind of engagement, not only with their peers, but in that school. And at ASU, we're one of the biggest universities. So having that connection in those classrooms where maybe that's not typical, just given the class sizes. And last, my favorite part of the class was the small community aspect. Everyone in the class was very friendly and supportive, and it was nice to have a small group like that to lift each other up and support in their hope journeys. So I just felt like these, and these are just the ones that I just had, I just pulled these. And so it's just such a wonderful thing that we are having this time to focus on hope, everything that it can promote and support. And I'm excited to be part of this.
Hello, everyone. A happy Monday and happy Hope Day. May is one of my favorite months of the year because it's International Mental Health Month. And I'd just like to take a moment to ground us in hope being a felt sense, not a technical term or a scientific output, but it truly is a part of our innate capacities as a human being to grapple with challenging times and to overcome unprecedented circumstances. And so if everybody will just indulge me, I'll just invite you to take a moment to close your eyes, take a deep breath, and simply just check in on what your felt sense of hopefulness is. It could be a color, it could be a part of your body that you feel, but hopefulness and hope are not abstract terms. They're aspects of our being that we can deeply connect with. So whatever's arising for you in this moment, I invite you to just breathe into it. And thank you for all of those. If you're still going strong, just hold on to it. I don't have all the time in the world, but I would ask you to hold on to it for the rest of the month. My work is concerned with contemplative and pedagogical dimensions of healing that look at spirituality and mental health. And one of the biggest kind of blends of science and practice that I think I've seen over the last few years is that Hope is cultivated through kind of contemplative practice. So time for introspection and grappling with the unknown in a way that leads to new awareness or a new sense of how to approach a given situation. And one of the things that contemplative practices do is they help develop a sense of agency. And we all know that kind of hope is often combined with a sense of action to do something. And so I just wanted to share a set of values or principles today that can help in the active cultivation of hope. So the first is the practice of stillness or silence. So in our busy days and everything's moving so much, simply practicing to sit in silence can help reveal a new sense of hope. The second is reciprocity. So working in service of benefit to others and all sentient life, to the earth, and finding ways to be in active help in relationship with others can cultivate hope. The third is relational practices toward connection. So finding practices that help build relations with others, with other beings, with plants, any sort of relationality that connects us with something beyond our individual sense of self and a sense of connectedness is great. And the last is just cultivating love in whatever capacity that means for you. We know that love can be a powerful force in the face of hopelessness. And so in any part of your daily life, I invite you to just cultivate love or step into love in more powerful ways. I will end with sharing just what's bringing me hope today. What's bringing me hope is that healing is happening at multiple levels of our system in a lasting, lifelong, perpetuitous way, in that it's not an end that any of us will just reach, but a journey that we are all on together. And that young people are facing such uncertainty in the world with tenacity, grace, and innovation. And with that, I will just say thank you, and I'm wishing all of you a hopeful day. Bye.
What a great opportunity for Hope Squad and for us to be with you folks. Many of our advisors are participating in this for this Day of Hope and World Day of Hope. So Hope Squads, if we can pull the slides up. Just a little background. I'm a former high school principal and associate superintendent with Provo City School District. And unfortunately, I lost 5 students to suicide, spoke at 3 of their funerals, and then wanted to do everything that I could to help prevent suicide. And so one of the things that we did was pull all of our kids together and do everything that we could to focus on reaching out and providing hope to others. So one of the first things we did was develop a program. Is what we found is 7 out of 10 young people who take their lives tell a friend, and then that friend will never tell an adult. And so we knew that we needed to involve young people. And so the Hope Squad program, school-based peer-to-peer suicide prevention program in grades 4 through 12, that train and mentor students nominated by their peers to perform intentional outreach with fellow students. Here's the school-based program.
Suicide is the 3rd leading cause of death among youth between ages 10 to 19 years old. 4,600 youth are lost to suicide each year. However, most suicides are preventable. Youth who are contemplating suicide frequently give warning signs of their distress. 7 out of 10 will tell a friend or give a warning sign that they are struggling, but many of their friends do not tell an adult. A Hope Squad is a group of students nominated by their peers as good listeners and caring fellow students. They work closely with the local mental health agency. Hope Squad students are taught by the school counselor and advisors on how to recognize suicide warning signs in their peers and provide support. Hope Squad members are trained on how to talk to a fellow struggling student. If the peer needs help, they listen and then try to convince them to go see an adult in the school. If that does not work, they inform a school counselor about their concerns about their peers, so the advisors can contact the student and the parents for additional help and support. Hope Squad members also bring suicide prevention awareness to the entire school by holding an annual Hope Week, where fellow peers are given information about suicide prevention. For more information, please visit www.hopeforutah.com.
As I mentioned earlier, a former high school principal, associate superintendent, and unfortunately, the state of Utah was in the top 10 states for suicide for over 12 years. Youngest suicide we lost in our school district in Provo, Utah, home to Brigham Young University, was a fourth grader. So we knew that we really needed to do something different to involve students, because what we did find is that 7 out of 10 young people who take their lives will tell a friend, and then that friend will never tell an adult. So can you see that next slide? Why can't I see it? Wow. Huh. So what we did is we went through and involved the young people, went into a high school that the previous 3 years had lost 4 young people. And we asked every young person, went through every English class, and we asked every young person, if you were struggling emotionally and needed to talk to someone, list the names of 3 of the peers that you would feel comfortable going to. And so the most amazing thing happened. The same 40 names out of 2,100 kids rose to the top. So we pulled those 40 young people together, started training them on risk factors, warning signs, how to talk to their peers. And it was so successful, we put it in every school, 13 elementaries, 3 middle schools, and 3 high schools. And where we had been averaging 1 to 2 youth suicides a year, we went 9 years without a suicide. Hope is our greatest future, and we know that. And we know that when we pull young people together and empower them and give them the ability to know what to do, because what we find is that there are a lot of natural helpers out there, young people that friends turn to when they're struggling, but they don't know what to do. And so we have found, by identifying those young people and empowering them, it's amazing, lives can be saved. We're now in over 1,300 schools, and over 10,000 young people have been referred for help, and over 2,500 kids hospitalized because of their peers reaching out to them.
Thank you so much. You're doing incredible work. And I am located in Nevada, and we were doing some work with teens, and Hope Squad came up so many times. So you're really getting out there, and it's super important to activate hope in the teen kind of peer-to-peer space. So thank you for all you're doing. I think we just heard that Jen actually just joined us. So Jen is going to speak a little bit more on hope science first, before we get to that video by Lewis. Jen, I met many years ago when I actually started this through, I was told of her through Shane Lopez, who had done a lot of research on the science of hope and worked with C.R. Snyder, and talked to him when I initially created the program to kind of teach hope. And so Jen has been doing really incredible research and is kind of one of the pioneers in hope. So we're really grateful to have her here today.
Hi, how are you? All right. So I think have a few minutes to maybe give some updates on hope research. I didn't prepare any slides because I thought by the time I got slides together that might actually take some time that would take away from the update on the research. So I just want to tell you about a couple of studies that we've been doing in my lab, and then maybe highlight a couple of other researchers that have been doing some great work on hope. And I want to talk about 2 studies that we've published from my lab in the past 2 years. And one is a study where we're really trying to figure out what exactly hope looks like in the real world. So Rick's model of hope, as you all know, has pathways and agency components, and it has goals in the theoretical model, although it's not that goals aren't measured in the self-report of hope. So what we did was we had people fill out hope scores, hope scales, so that we had their hope score. And then we also had them write about goals that they were interested in pursuing in the next 4 months or so. And then what we did is we asked them to, you know, in talking about these goals, just kind of write down what it was they wanted to get done. And we had separate people, our raters, we'll call them, go through and rate all of the goals that people generated in terms of how specific they were, how pro-social they were, how pro-social those people's goals were, how approach-oriented they were. So were people writing goals about things they wanted to do, or were they writing goals about things they wanted to avoid happening? We also looked at how difficult they were. So how hard would it be for an average person to reach this goal? And so the raters did all of those ratings, and then we collapsed those across raters to look at them. And what we found was that higher hope scores were associated with generating goals that were more pro-social. So higher hope people had goals that were also better for other people, not just better for themselves. They were also more difficult. So higher hope people gave us bigger goals, things that might be a little bit harder to get done. And they tended to be more approach oriented than lower hope folks. And then the second part of that study is we gave a different group of participants our own goals. So we gave them 5 goals, and we asked them to generate pathways for those goals. So how would you get this done if this was your goal? And then we also had them complete measures of hope and self-efficacy and grit and optimism. And what we found was that the higher hope people were able to generate more pathways. Were able to generate more pathways to those goals. So their pathways weren't necessarily different from other people, but they did generate more pathways. And so what this had us thinking is that there's some signal in the hope scale that is really picking up on actual kinds of behaviors, goal setting behaviors and pathway generating behaviors that we weren't quite sure of until this study. The other study that we did, we looked at, again, we had people give us their goals for the next 4 months. And then we looked at how depression and anxiety were related to the progress they made on their goals. We know that people who are more depressed and more anxious have a harder time meeting their goals. But what we found was that hope uniquely, compared to self-efficacy and grit, hope uniquely attenuated that relationship between symptoms and lower goal progress. So that for high hope people, how depressed or anxious you reported being was not related to how well you did in kind of reaching your goals. So that's another really important thing we think in terms of working with hope, is thinking about how that interacts with some of the other things that we have going on in our lives at any various time. Then I just want to take a minute or so to highlight some other researchers. Matt Gallagher has a paper out where he did some really interesting research during COVID. So looking at how hope protected people from developing symptoms of psychopathology during COVID. And David Feldman also has some really interesting research right now about first responders during the time of COVID, and how hope is related to less burnout for people, physicians particularly, that are responding to the increased need during these COVID times. So I think that brings me right in at 5 minutes, which is what I had prepared for today.
Great. I think next, I'm hoping that we can play a video that Luis Gallardo sent to me. He started with the International Day of Happiness. He's been involved in that since the beginning, and I've run a number of events for him. He has a week of happiness, and he does a day for health. So we've had a lot of incredible speakers from around the world, many that are here today, speaking on why mental health is so important for health and happiness. And so we have a video from Luis. I'm wondering if we can possibly share that.
Hi, I'm Luis Gallardo, the founder and president of the World Happiness Foundation and the World Happiness Fest. Today, we are probably the largest forum in the world focused on happiness and well-being, and hope is always core to what we do. We see core as a motivation, is that intrinsic motivation that bring us to a new level of expansion and evolution. We need hope. Hope is one of those fundamental values that move societies and all of us to another state of consciousness. And today, celebrating International Day of Hope, and thanks to Kathryn and all these experts, amazing, that are going to share their views, I think that we are getting closer to creating societies that are becoming able to achieve the limitless. So I'm super happy being here and supporting this day. And this reminds me a lot of what happened 10 years ago, exactly on June 2012, when the General Assembly passed Resolution 66281, basically creating International Day of Happiness. And since then, more than 194 countries signed this resolution. And we've been evolving and creating awareness about the relevance of creating new paradigms for human development. The General Assembly recognized the relevance of happiness and well-being as universal goals and aspirations in the lives of all human beings around the world. And the importance of the recognition in public policy objectives. The need for more inclusive, equitable, and balanced approach to economic growth was the key in order to understand that happiness can become the reference framework for human progress. I think that hope as the motivation and at the core of happiness and well-being is going to advance the overall agenda of creating new paradigms for human evolution. There is another resolution that is very important, which is the 65309, and that was approved 1 year before International Day of Happiness. And that resolution is called Happiness Towards an Holistic Approach to Development. And basically this resolution is inviting all countries, cities, institutions, international and regional and local, to create new measures for human progress. I would love to see hope as one of those measures. What is the level of hope that we have at the local level, at the regional level, at the international level? Because I'm sure that the more hope, the more opportunity for everybody to grow and to create amazing opportunities for everybody. So what happened over the last 10 years? I think that we've done a lot of research. We've come together and we have brought many, many different insights about the science of happiness and well-being. And something that we really discovered is that happiness is a state of mind. And there's always ups and downs. What we know as well is that happiness is helping us to be more creative. It allows us to innovate more. It creates the conditions for people to evolve and expand in a really optimistic and positive way. Something that we realize very important through research is that actually happy people don't kill. And this is very important because when we look at preventive measures for evolution and for conflict resolution, happiness becomes a very important enabler. Hope and happiness, I see them as two sides of the same coin. The more hope, the more opportunity to expand. The more happiness, the more opportunity to be hopeful. So I invite everybody to celebrate hope and International Day of Hope as we do with International Day of Happiness. We learn a lot, and if I can summarize something that is really important for all of us as human society, and is going to be very important for all of us as human society in the coming years, is basically focused on 7 elements. One of them, and I call them human values or human goals, and hope is the anchor for all of them, you would see. The first one is that what people really want is to have a body free of disease. Body free of disease. And this is very much linked to health and physical health. But people want to as well breath free of agitation. People want a mind free of stress. An intellect free of inhibitions or prejudice. A memory free of trauma. An ego capable of including everyone. And a soul free of sorrow. Think about them. We want to achieve them without hope. That's why hope is so ultimately relevant and important for human evolution. So thank you so much for celebrating this day. And I hope that hope and the measurement of hope and bringing tools and bringing awareness to this important subject and important value becomes strategic at all levels of society and at the personal growth level. Thank you very much.
Thank you all so much for joining today and for helping us really activate hope and the science of hope and what hope is for us internally and what it means for mental health around the world and why kind of we have to act now for hope. I'm super proud with how far we've all come on hope. So thank you all so much for joining.